Have you ever wondered what would happen if the lifeline connecting China and Europe, the artery that carries billions of dollars in goods, was suddenly cut off overnight? Imagine hundreds of trains, thousands of containers, and entire economies put on hold at the flip of a political switch. That's exactly what just happened when Poland slammed its borders shut with Belarus, halting the China-Europe freight railway and throwing global trade into chaos. But here's the twist. While Europe scrambled, China had already prepared a backup plan. And if it works, Poland's role as the gateway to Europe might vanish forever. Let's unravel the shocking story of how a single decision exposed Europe's dependence, revealed the fragility of global supply chains, and triggered a race for new trade routes across Eurasia. To understand why this move matters, you first have to grasp the sheer scale of the China-Europe freight railway. This isn't just a train line, it's a modern reimagining of the Silk Road. Spanning more than 13,000 kilometers, it connects 25 countries and nearly 230 cities. Over 110,000 trains have already thundered along this route, carrying everything from German auto parts to Chinese electronics. The value of goods shipped has already surpassed $450 billion, making it one of the most important arteries of global trade. Every container that moves along these tracks represents businesses meeting deadlines, factories keeping production lines running, and farmers delivering goods to market on time. On the map, the network looks like a giant spiderweb, dense, far-reaching, and vital. Germany is a major hub, with Duisburg serving as Europe's busiest logistics center for Chinese trains. Poland, meanwhile, has emerged as a crucial bridge, its terminals processing nearly every train crossing from Belarus into the EU. Without Poland, the entire network struggles to function. But then came September 2025 when Poland made a decision that stunned both China and Europe. Out of nowhere, Poland announced it was closing all road and rail crossings with Belarus. No exceptions. Suddenly, more than 300 China-Europe freight trains were left stranded at the border. Tens of thousands of containers, packed with consumer goods, industrial components, and even time-sensitive shipments like dairy and electronics, were stuck in limbo. For businesses across Europe and Asia, this was nothing short of a nightmare. Orders delayed, contracts broken, factories left waiting for critical parts. Within days, billions of dollars worth of goods were frozen at the border. But here's the burning question. Why would Poland deliberately cut off such a vital artery, one that benefits its own economy as much as anyone else's? On the surface, Poland's explanation seemed straightforward: security. Around September 10th, reports emerged that more than 20 drones, believed to be of Russian origin, crossed into Polish airspace from Ukraine. The Polish military scrambled jets and fired to drive them off. No serious damage occurred, but the timing raised alarm bells. Just days later, Russia and Belarus announced they would conduct massive joint military exercises near Poland's border. 100,000 troops, tanks, aircraft, and even simulated nuclear strikes. To Poland, this wasn't a drill, it was a warning. The government quickly declared the closure of its Belarusian crossings, claiming it was necessary to protect Polish citizens. On paper, it looked like a defensive move. But was that really the whole story? Dig deeper, and another layer emerges, one that has less to do with drones and drills, and more to do with politics and power. Since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, Poland has transformed into the West's frontline logistics hub. The city of Rzeszów has become a lifeline for Ukraine, hosting NATO operations and serving as the main entry point for weapons and aid. At the same time, Poland has been negotiating with the European Union for a €40 billion defense subsidy to fortify its eastern border. Closing the crossings with Belarus at such a tense moment wasn't just about safety, it also strengthened Poland's bargaining position. By showing it was willing to sacrifice trade for security, Warsaw could argue it deserved massive financial and military support. And there was another factor. Poland has long believed it holds a geographic monopoly over China-Europe rail freight. Roughly 90% of trains pass through Poland, with its Małaszewicze terminal handling almost all transfers. To Warsaw, this is a strategic resource, one that ensures long-term economic leverage. But this time, the gamble had unintended consequences. The closure sent shockwaves through the supply chain. About 90% of services came to a standstill, leaving nearly 300 trains stuck at the Belarusian border. The estimated value of delayed goods, over $320 million in e-commerce shipments alone, not to mention high-value items like electronics, auto parts, and solar panels. The European Union's Supply Chain Monitoring Center even issued a dire warning. If the blockade continued, trade could collapse by as much as 25 billion euros. Inside Poland, the impact was just as brutal. The Małaszewicze logistics hub, normally buzzing with activity, went silent. Warehouses sat empty, customs offices had nothing to process, and local companies bled money. Losses reached an estimated $12 million per day. For a country that prides itself on being the gateway of Eurasia, this was a dangerous message. If Poland can't guarantee reliability, businesses might start looking for other routes. And China was already a step ahead. What most people didn't realize is that China had been preparing for this exact scenario. For years, Beijing quietly worked on alternative corridors, determined never to let a single country hold its trade hostage. First, the Arctic route. Partnering with Russia, China launched trials to ship goods through the Northern Sea Passage. In September, a vessel departed from Ningbo, passed Shanghai, and sailed through the Arctic waters to Britain, Germany, and Poland. The journey? Just 18 days, nearly half the time of traditional shipping routes. Second, the Middle Corridor, also known as the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. Starting in China, it passes through Kazakhstan, crosses the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan, then through Georgia and Turkey into Europe. During Poland's closure, this line diverted goods worth over $45 million in a single day. Traffic surged 28 times compared to the previous year, handling about 15% of overall freight. Third, the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway, now under construction. At 523 kilometers long, it will bypass Russia and Poland entirely. By cutting 900 kilometers off the journey, it will slash transport time by up to a week and reduce costs by 30%. Once completed in 2031, it could handle nearly a third of all China-Europe freight. For China, the message is clear. No single choke point should ever have the power to shut down Eurasian trade again. Already, the balance is shifting. The southern routes, once seen as secondary, are now booming. Traffic has grown 127% year-on-year, with their market share rising from 18% to 31%. Meanwhile, Poland's share is projected to drop by 15%. What was once Warsaw's ace card, its geographic dominance, is starting to look more like a liability. By overplaying its hand, Poland may have accelerated its own decline in the China-Europe trade network. And for China, the crisis was almost an opportunity, proof that diversifying routes is not just strategic, but essential for global supply chain resilience. The China-Europe Freight Railway isn't just steel and tracks. It's a lifeline carrying millions of business orders, keeping factories humming, and ensuring farmers from Poland to China can sell their products across borders. Every disruption has real consequences: missed shipments, lost jobs, rising prices. Poland's decision to close its border sent a powerful reminder. When one country tries to weaponize trade, the rest of the world adapts. New routes open, new partnerships form, and power shifts. In the end, Poland may have hoped to strengthen its position, but instead it pushed China and Europe closer to building alternatives that could bypass it altogether. And that leaves us with one final thought. In today's interconnected world, no single country can control the flow of global trade forever. History always finds another path. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because as these trade battles continue to reshape the world, we'll be here to uncover the stories that others don't tell.